Okay, I believe we're live. It's Jerry Mulvena here from independencelive.net, and tonight we're joined at short notice by Liam O'Hare, who's a journalist with Common Space. Good evening, Liam.
Pleasure.
So, thanks for joining us, everyone at home, and thanks for joining us, Liam. So, I'll basically let Liam tell us what happened this morning once he saw the Daily Record splash across the front page.
Yeah, well, I think, as surprised as everyone was, or maybe a wee bit. Found this story initially a wee bit bizarre. That you had an SNP member coming out so vocally in support of Labour. So as you'd expect any journalist to do, I followed up this story when I got into the office this morning. Found Mr. Shoaib's phone number and gave him a call just to make sure that the Daily Record had the facts right on it, and that he was happy to repeat this. Much to my surprise, Mr. Shoaib told me that not only was he still a member of the SNP, but that he had no intention to join the Labour Party. That he was happy to see some kind of Labour SNP deal at Westminster. That yes, he did want to see a Labour government at Westminster, but that his position hadn't actually changed that much since 2010 when he had the same thing. So that was the basis of my story on Common Space.
Right.
My story on Common Space was based directly on a 20-minute, maybe half an hour conversation that I had with Mr. Shoaib, asking him questions repeatedly that he assured me he was still a member of the SNP. He told me that members of his community had in fact pressured him to come out and say he supported Labour. He told me that he hadn't actually read the story in the Daily Record yet, but he was aware that media could spin things. So my conversation with Mr. Shoaib seemed to cast a very different tale than the one that the Daily Record had told in their very sensationalist manner, as anyone would recognise.
But I suppose they felt they had a smoking gun by putting the photographs of Mr. Shoaib beside Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond, then juxtaposing that with him and Anas Sarwar and Margaret Curran, if I'm right. And I think they stated the picture with the Labour representatives was like from this week or last week. So a recent photograph of him with the Labour giving the thumbs up. Did you ask him about the photo shoot or how that came about?
I did. Mr. Shoaib, of course, for anyone who's looked into this story, will be aware that he was a former Labour councillor. And he told me he has, even though he's been a member of the SNP, I think for the past 8 or 9 years, he told me he's remained good links with the Labour Party, particularly with the Sarwar family within Labour, and that has led to him receiving some elements of pressure to come out in support of Labour at this election. So there seems to be certain facts that we can ascertain from this. Yes, this gentleman has came out in support of Labour at this election, but the Daily Record claimed this morning that he had joined the Labour Party. They claimed he'd left the SNP. Now, this didn't actually happen, or this wasn't confirmed by the Labour Party until later on this afternoon, today, after we'd written our story on Common Space. After, I might add as well, we had the Daily Record calling us up in Common Space and making a series of threats to us, accusing us of cajoling Mr. Shoaib into retracting his statement.
Really?
Now,
right.
I can say for sure, as any of my colleagues within the office can, there is absolutely no indication or that any cajoling, as the Daily Record editor put it, took place there. Mr. Shoaib definitely seemed like he wanted to put his own the record straight on the matter, and that's what he did to me. So I'm not sure what has taken place beyond us printing the story and then him joining the Labour Party. It all seems very convoluted. It seems very bizarre. Perhaps outside pressures have been involved. perhaps Mr. Shoaib's a bit of a chameleon, and he's just decided to change colours here and there. Who knows? But I think it's definitely a bit of a lesson in terms of the Daily Record making sure they've got their facts right before they print things.
Yeah. Did I read somewhere that the Daily Record said they had a resignation letter from Mr. Shoaib in their possession?
Apparently so. I've not seen it. I heard this when a journalist, the journalist in question, David Clegg, called me, and I asked him to send it on. I've not seen the resignation letter. Perhaps it does. Perhaps it does exist. All I can ascertain is that when I spoke to Mr. Shoaib this morning, he was adamant to reinforce that he remained a member of the SNP and had not joined the Labour Party. Now, as a journalist, obviously it's my prerogative to directly report that and report that as news, and that seemed a certain. Now, I specifically asked Mr. Shoaib about remarks that he'd made in December relating to Jim Murphy. He'd commented and said that Jim Murphy could not be a representative of the Labour Party, considering he's supported illegal wars in Iraq, considering he'd been a very outspoken supporter of Israel, and that within the Muslim community, Jim Murphy had no respect. So I asked Mr. Shoaib about this morning, and he said that he could not possibly comment because he was not a member of the Labour Party. So that seems to give an indication that when the Daily Record gave this story, obviously something was amiss. Obviously it was.
Yeah, I suppose as the story twisted and turned throughout the day, there was one thing, sort of a side thing that came out. It quotes him as being a sort of organizer of Scots Asians for Independence, and as it turns out, there's more than one organisation that has that name or part of that name. So I think the bigger one is Scots Asians for Independence for Yes, or on Twitter that's SAFI number 4 Yes, and there's also an SAFI number 4 Indie. So it's a bit confusing because I wasn't really aware there was two organisations, but Mr. Shoaib is associated with the second of those, which doesn't have as big a following as the first of those. Was he a sort of leading light in Scots Asians for Independence for Indie, which is a bit of a mouthful if you spell out their Twitter handle in full.
I think what's become clear throughout this is that any idea that Mr. Shoaib was some kind of SNP boss, as the Daily Record put it, is very far-fetched indeed. I think there's no doubt about that. I think he is a supporter of Yes. He was a Yes activist, as many hundreds of thousands of people across Scotland were back in September. He says he still remains a Yes activist, and he's still very supportive of a Yes vote. So there's no doubt about that. But I think it has been stretched a bit by the Daily Record to suggest that this guy is somehow a kind of leading light within the Yes movement, or even within the kind of Asians for Yes movement. I think that is somewhat far-fetched, and I think, in fact, considering the different tales that we've heard even just today, it suggests that something is quite amiss with this story, and I think it would suggest that maybe the Daily Record, before they go and do kind of front page splashes about this, then they perhaps should maybe kind of make sure they've got all the facts right.
Right. Well, we're going to let you go shortly, but before we do, when you published your story, your web server went down. Could you tell us a bit about what happened there, or what you think happened there?
Well, we published the story today, maybe around noon, and not long after that, our web server did go down, and we obviously got in touch with our tech team. We were told our server had been under attack. Now, I'm not of these tech issues have been claimed to be, but our tech team had confirmed that we'd received some kind of attack. Now, I don't know if it's related to this story. It would seem a bit coincidental that the minute we have a story such as this, there's some kind of attack on our server. But I guess these are things that we're learning as we go along, and hopefully we can put better defence mechanisms in place, so that if we do become a target of attack for whatever reason, we can ensure that we can keep our server up and we can keep delivering news to people, and people can access it. So we'll definitely try to improve our
Okay.
defence mechanisms for the future.
Was that the first time that's happened, Liam?
It's the first time we've been aware of any kind of attack on our server. It's very new to us. But if we are a target for this, I think that's something that to be honest, we'll be quite happy with, because we do want to rustle feathers at Common Space. Common Space is there to do this type of journalism that perhaps other people are less likely to. We do want to dig out stories and really shine a light on those in power, and also shine a light on the media at the same time and hold them to account. So if we're rustling feathers, we're quite happy to do that, you know.
Okay, Liam. Well, thanks for joining us at short notice, and good luck with how the story turns out tomorrow. I'm sure there's another twist or turn still left. All the best.
I'm sure there are. Cheers, guys. Okay. Thank you very much.